Okay, the second episode of our Analyzing Women series. In this one, I'm going to be analyzing Margot Robbie. And quickly, before I forget, and I haven't done this in past videos, so I want to do it from this point onwards. If you want to order an analysis, I do offer the most in-depth analysis on the market. I just did a 50 to 60 page analysis for this guy, and you can order the amount of detail you want for the price that you want. It'll be fair relative to the amount of detail you get. So yeah, we'll begin now with Margot, and she has a very interesting face and not a lot of flaws either. However, I think she will score lower than Adriana, but still very high. So the first thing we want to begin with is her frontal profile, and these are just the selection of photos we have. So in the frontal view, I tried to pick the least distorted photos, and these seem to be the least distorted ones after measuring them. Mostly this one will work with. So the first thing we want to look at is a flaw, and that is her jaw frontal angle is a little bit flatter than ideal. And how we take this is just the angle between the chin and the jaw. And hers is about 103 here, and I have it measured at 101.6. So that's quite a bit outside of the ideal range, which will be between 90 or 83 and 95-ish. So that is her first flaw, and what it does is it disharmonizes with our mid-face region. As you can see, the angle is not the same, and it's more narrow and acute here at about 97. Or 90, sorry. So yeah, like about 90, that's about a 10-degree difference. And ideally, you don't want to have more than a 15-degree difference between your jaw and your mid-face. And ideally, it would be no difference, but... Okay. The next thing we'll look at is her eyebrows, how low set they are. And her eyebrows are about low to medium set at about 0.68 eyes heights above her eye line. So the reason they look a little bit higher than that is because her eye height is quite high, as in she has vertically high eyes, they're not as narrow. So what this does is you have a bigger denominator basically. So yeah, her eyes are about medium. We could say they're medium set. They're not exactly that low, which is not really a flaw. It's probably ideal after I analyze all the women. And her eye aspect ratio is about 2.5, which is a little bit more rounded in shape than a traditional male face, but that makes sense since women have more rounded eye shapes generally. Her eyebrow tilt is another potential flaw, although I have a feeling that women tend to have more upturned eyebrows that are more arched. So her eyebrows are about 18.6 degrees tilted positively, which is quite high. I don't think we've seen a male with eyebrows that tilted. But it kind of matches her canthal tilt. So in other words, her eye tilt. And she has ideally upturned eyes at about 8.8 degrees positive tilt, and that's in the ideal range for women. And usually there's always going to be some asymmetry in the canthal tilt, but one thing I've noticed in analyzing the first 5 women is that the hyper attractive women tend to have exceptional eye symmetry. Like their eye midline is almost perfectly aligned. We can see that better here. So if we take just a perfect horizontal line, you can see that there's no deviation. It's just perfectly aligned. So that might be a thing to note. Okay, the next thing we'll look at is the eye spacing, and she has really good eye spacing. It's not perfect, but it's still top tier. And you take this by dividing this line by the total facial width, and hers is a perfect 46.2%, which is right smack dab in the middle of the ideal range. But one thing we do note is that her eye spacing is only 0.82 eyes apart, and ideally it should be about 1 eye apart. 0.9 to 1 eye apart. So this is not too bad at all, but it's definitely not ideal. Her mid-face region is extremely compact, with a mid-face ratio of 1.08 rounded, which is, I suspect it's a little bit higher than ideal, but we'll see. I have a feeling also that women tend to have more compact mid-faces, so this might be in the ideal range still. It doesn't look too compact. Her lip ratios are ideal, and her lip fullness is ideal, in that her lower lip is 1.83 times the height of the upper lip, and ideally it should be between 1.4-ish to 2 times. However, I think in women they will have a fuller upper lip, so the ratio might be even lower than that. The facial thirds are impeccable, probably even better than Adriana's. So you take the facial thirds at 3 points. I think this is called the trichion, which is the forehead region, the hairline. The glabella, which is the brow region, and the subnasal region, and this is the submental region, or the chin. So these 3 points, and her facial thirds are perfectly distributed at 34.4% upper, and her upper third is her largest third, a 33% middle third, and a 32.6% lower third. Once again, like the Adriana video, it seems that female dimorphic faces, or what is typical for a female face, is that a smaller lower third tends to be attractive, but one that is not too small. So as you can see, all her thirds are really close to 33%. They don't even stray more than about 1.5. Yeah, they don't stray more than 1.4%. Okay, so her mouth width to nose width ratio is also perfectly ideal, right near the golden ratio. Her mouth is 1.59 times her nose, and the golden ratio, if you're not familiar, is about 1.61, so it's very close. Her cheekbones are the highest cheekbones we've ever seen in a male or female face, and perhaps I can demonstrate that in this one better. So how we do this is we see the widest part of the face, and it's about here, and this line relative to this line is how high the cheekbones are, and we measure that as this purple line divided by this blue line, if that makes sense. So it's just how high the cheekbones are, and hers are about 94.2% upper mid face, and that's the highest we've ever seen by a pretty big margin, to be honest. And you can see here too, just the widest part of her face is really close to the eyes, and it just provides a youthful supporting bone appearance. And I think cheekbones are perhaps underrated in how they contribute to attractiveness. So it's well known that high cheekbones are just a trope of an attractive face, but I think they really do matter a lot more than people think. Her facial width to height ratio is almost exactly the same as Adriana, and she has a similar face shape. Hers is 2.02 to 1, so she has a very compact mid-face region in the ideal range. Her jaw width is also great. It's harder to demonstrate in this photo, but I'll just tell you the measurement. So her jaw width as a percentage of her cheekbone width, and we take the jaw width at the gonion, which is like the lowest point of the jaw, is about 86.8%. And that should be in the ideal range. It is. I would guarantee that. Okay, we'll move on to the side profile. So this is her side profile, and right off the bat, she has the strongest jaw I think we've ever seen in both a male or female face, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. If it harmonizes with feminine features, as she has a lot of feminine nose measurements and other assessments, so if it harmonizes with a feminine face, a strong jaw won't look bad. But her gonal angle, or the angle of her jaw, is highly masculinized at about 114 to 115 degrees. And that's low even for a male face. It produces a strong jaw appearance, which is quite obvious that she has. Her ramus length, or the upper back part of the jaw, so this is the ramus, and in males it should be about a 5 to 7 ratio, or about 0.7 times this length. And I don't know how that will change in women. I think it'll be shorter, so it'll probably be about 0.6 or so, or lower. But in Margot it is exactly 0.67, so very close to the male ideal. And you can see that her ramus is exceptionally long. Her one flaw that she has is that her jaw is slightly flatter than ideal. In terms of the mandibular plane angle, which just measures how flat the jaw is relative to the Frankfurt plane, and her jaw is slightly flatter at 13.9 degrees. Ideally it would be about 15 to 23, because you don't want to have a jaw that's too flat, obviously. But hers is not that bad. It's not severely detracting from her attractiveness. All of her lip assessments are perfectly ideal, which was surprising to me considering her strong jaw. But this is the E line, and you can see that her upper lip lies a lot behind this line, and the lower lip should lie less, so that's perfectly ideal. The burst on line assessment is the same deal. Hers is pretty ideal, with the upper lip slightly exceeding, and other assessments as well. This is called the Steiner line, which takes the chin, lower lip, upper lip, and the inflection point at the bottom of the nose here, and they should all align. Her side profile is perhaps stronger than her front, but hard to say for sure. They're both very strong and very ideal. This is her nasofrontal angle, and hers is very good at about, this again, this is about 128 to 131 degrees. I haven't measured at 128.4, which is, I guarantee, in the ideal range for women, since the ideal range is slightly higher than the one in males. Her face is ideally convex or rounded. We measure that by this angle, called the facial convexity angle, and hers is perfectly ideal at 171.2 degrees. So she has neither an underbite or any other type of malocclusion. I can just tell by the measurements I've done, which is surprising because generally you see a woman with a strong jaw, or anyone with a really strong jaw, and you'd kind of assume they have an underbite, but The good part about her jaw is most of her jaw strength comes from her back part of the jaw, not a fully protruded lower jaw or mandible. So that's everything we're going to take a look at for Margot. I have a feeling she's going to score exceptionally high, above 85% harmony. She has a few minor flaws, perhaps, like the eyebrows being too upturned. But other than that, there's not much to note as a major flaw at all. So in the comments, feel free to guess what you think her harmony score will be, and if you want a facial analysis, I do offer those for men or women. And yeah, thank you for watching.